He wasn't supposed to be forgotten. It should have been impossible for a hero of his caliber to simply vanish into the sun-baked quiet of a forgotten town. Yet there he stood, Sergeant Major Marcus Thorne, a Medal of Honor recipient, a sentinel. Beside a crumbling war memorial in the remote desert town of Redemption, he sought no recognition, no name called out, just the weight of war in his eyes, and the silent, unacknowledged purpose of a pilgrimage to a place tied to a fallen brother-in-arms, and canine partner valor, lost to the bureaucratic machinery years ago. The townsfolk, however, saw only a weathered stranger. His stillness was misinterpreted as menace, his presence near their sacred stone a perceived threat. The sentinel, disciplined and watchful, carried the unspoken trauma of countless battles. Yet his current mission was one of quiet remembrancing, attempt to find peace where only ghosts of the past seemed to linger. The harsh, unforgiving landscape mirrored his inner state, a vast expanse of memory and loss, where the wind whispered names only he could hear. His covert reason for being there was a fragile hoopah, whisper against the thunder of his past. The first ripple in the stagnant air of redemption came from Mrs. Albright, the proprietor of the town's only Danera woman, whose own heart was a memorial to a son lost in the very conflicts that had forged Thorne. Her gaze, sharpened by grief and an inherent distrust of outsiders, fell upon the stoic figure by the memorial. She saw not a man paying respects, but a potential drifter. His disciplined stillness unnerved rather than reassured her. The subtle intensity in Thorne's posture, the way he seemed to survey the horizon as if expecting an enemy long gone, triggered a deep-seated fear within her. This man didn't belong, misinterpreting his quiet vigil for something far more sinister. Threat to the fragile peace of her town, she reached for the telephone, her hand trembling slightly as she dialed Sheriff Brody. This act, born of a mother's protective instinct and a widow's unhealed sorrow, set in motion a chain of events that would pull Redemption and Thorne from the shadows of forgotten grief into the harsh light of an unexpected reckoning. The tension began to coil unseen, but palpably around the unsuspecting sergeant major. The arrival of Deputy Miller, young, crisp in his uniform and operating strictly by the book, shattered the desert quiet. He saw not a decorated hero, but a vagrant and unknown quantity in his well-ordered jurisdiction. "Double quotes, sir. Can I help you?" Miller's tone was polite, but edged with the overconfidence of unchallenged local authority. Thorne, his gaze unwavering, responded with the sparse, calm truth. "Just paying respects." When Miller pressed for identification, Thorne simply stated, "Don't need ID for that." This laconic honesty, so alien to the deputy's world of forms and protocols, served only to escalate Miller's suspicion. The lack of conventional documentation became the justification for further action. This man was an anomaly, potentially dangerous. "I'm going to need you to come down to the station, sir," Miller said, his hand moving instinctively closer to his sidearm. Thorne remained impassive, his silence a wall against which Miller's authority seemed to crash and splinter. The frustration in the deputy's eyes was clear. He called for backup, mentioning the canine unit just in case the stoic stranger decided to be less than cooperative. Just as the confrontation between Thorne and Deputy Miller threatened to boil over, Sheriff Brody arrived, a more seasoned officer, but still viewing the situation through the lens of local law and order. It was then that a small, innocent voice cut through the mounting tension. Little Lily, granddaughter of Mr. Henderson Eyre, respected town veteran, pointed toward Thorne. "Mummy," she said, her voice clear and unafraid. "He looks like the soldier in Grandpa's old picture, the one with the brave dog." A flicker almost imperceptibly crossed Thorne's stoic face at the mention of a brave dog, a sudden, sharp pang of a memory he had fought to keep buried. Sheriff Brody, however, focused on the immediate problem, unidentified man refusing to comply, dismissed the child's comment with a cursory glance, intent on resolving the situation according to procedure. Yet the seed of a deeper truth and narrative, far grander than a simple case of vagrancy, had been planted in the arid soil of redemption. Noticed only by the pure heart of a child, and perhaps by the silent man whose past was about to unexpectedly collide with his present, before Sheriff Brody could enforce any further action. The dust on the horizon heralded a new arrivaler, sleek, dark SUV, government plates glinting in the fierce sun. From it emerged Major Davies, an officer from Army Special Operations Command. Her demeanor was calm, composed, and undeniably authoritative. She surveyed the scene, her eyes quickly finding Thorn, Sergeant Major Thorn. She addressed him, a note of surprise and respect in her voice. "We've been trying to reach you. This is unexpected." She turned to Sheriff Brody discreetly, presenting credentials that left no room for argument. "Sergeant Major Thorn is a highly decorated individual," Major Davies stated, her voice firm. "He is on a private matter. This situation is a misunderstanding." The local authorities' Deputy Miller, visibly reeling, and Sheriff Brody, suddenly looking out of his depth, were left sidelined, their procedural world abruptly overridden by a hierarchy they hadn't anticipated. Thorn stood vindicated, his quiet dignity now framed by an undeniable, still mysterious importance that silenced the earlier accusations. The K-9 unit, summoned earlier by Deputy Miller, finally pulled up its arrival, now an almost ironic postscript to the shifted power dynamic. Officer Ramirez, the handler, brought forth a magnificent, powerful Belgian Malinwitz, official designation, Shadow. The air crackled with unspoken anticipation. The dog was a tool of the system, trained for compliance, expected to intimidate. But as Ramirez led Shadow closer to Thorn, something profound happened. Thorn's eyes, which had seen so much conflict, now locked onto the animal. A lifetime of command, camaraderie, and unbearable loss seemed to well up within him. He spoke, his voice raspy from disuse and emotion, yet carrying an unmistakable authority, valor. The Malinois doe froze mid-stride, its ears sharply erect, swiftly. A low, confused whine escaped its throat. Then, with a sudden, desperate surge, it pulled against Ramirez's straining leash knot with aggression, but with an overwhelming, heart-wrenching recognition. It sank to the ground before Thorn, whimpering, nudging its head insistently toward his outstretched, trembling hand. Valor Thorn whispered again, his voice thick, "It's me, it's Marcus." Major Davies, witnessing the impossible, quickly had Ramirez scan the dog's microchip. The data flashed on her secure tablet, K9 Valor ID X-Alpha 7, original handler, Sergeant Miller, trained alongside Sergeant Major Marcus Thorn. A miracle, undeniable, and Roe had just unfolded in the desert dust. The small crowd of onlookers, including a now deeply moved Mrs. Albright and a wide-eyed Lily, witnessed the reunion, their earlier suspicion melting into profound awe. The raw, unfiltered emotion of the scene was a language everyone understood. Mrs. Albright stepped forward, tears streaming down her face, her voice choked. "My son David, he served with a Sergeant Miller. He wrote about a Sergeant Major Thorn and a K-9 named Valor. They saved his unit after an ambush." Then Mr. Henderson Lily's grandfather, a stoic Vietnam veteran who rarely spoke of the past, moved through the crowd, his old eyes alight with understanding. "Some bonds," he declared, his voice resonating with hard-won wisdom, "forged in the hell of combat, baptized in fire and loyalty, they don't break. Not for distance, not for time, not ever." Thorn, overwhelmed, knelt beside Valor, his hand buried in the dog's fur. He looked up, his gaze meeting Mrs. Albright's. "Valor," he managed, his voice thick with unshed tears. "He dragged 3 of us out after the IED. He saved my life, that day and Sergeant Miller's. He never gave up." Major Davies, visibly shaken by the miracle she had just witnessed, was on her secure communication line with her command, relaying the almost unbelievable news of Valor's identity and his reunion with Thorn. The official confirmation crackled back, but with it came the cold, unyielding voice of protocol. They're acknowledging the uniqueness of the situation, Major Davies translated, her face tightening. "But Valor is still technically active service property, and Sergeant Major Thorn is retired. There are procedures to follow. They'll likely be separated, again processed anew." A sickening tension filled the air. The system, impersonal and inflexible, threatened to undo the miracle that had just unfolded. Officer Ramirez Shadow's current handler looked from the ecstatic, reunited dog to the heartbroken expression dawning on Thorn's face. He stepped forward, addressing Major Davies respectfully but firmly. "Ma'am, with all due respect to protocol, this dog Valère, he hasn't been truly himself since he came to us. Always alert, always searching. But now, just look at him. Some Rules, ma'am, they aren't written in any book. Some things are just right. As if summoned by the bureaucratic gears grinding miles away, the distant thrum of a helicopter grew louder. An extraction vehicle, likely dispatched to collect Valor for an inevitable debriefing. The end of this fragile reunion seemed imminent by regulations, but then the most unexpected intervention occurred. Little Lily, who had been instinctively recording the incredible scene on her mother's smartphone, had, with her mother's permission, uploaded the video. It was already igniting across social media, spreading like wildfire under hashtags like #ValorRemembers and #DesertHeroReunion by Jerk. Davies's cum device buzzed again, a different kind of urgency now in her voice. She listened, then a slow smile spread across her face. "Sergeant Major Thorne," she announced, a newfound lightness in her tone. "It appears you and Valor have just become a rather significant national story. Public affairs is ecstatic." Seems she paused, looking at the man and his dog. "This simplifies things considerably. The community, their hearts, fully one pressed forward, offering Thorne water, a freshly baked sandwich from Mrs. Albright's diner." Lily shyly presented Valor with a small, worn tennis ball. And so, Marcus Thorne and Valor, side by side, their bond reaffirmed against all odds, boarded the waiting helicopter, not as separate entities of the system, but together, whole, and vindicated. In the weeks that followed, the dusty, forgotten war memorial in that small desert town saw a new addition, a simple bronze plaque funded by the townsfolk of Redemption. It was dedicated to Sergeant Major Marcus Thorne and his canine valor, unbreakable bonds, undying loyalty. There are moments in life that defy logic, that whisper of a plan far grander and more compassionate than our own. Moments where loyalty outlasts separation and recognition, transcends years of silence, reminding us that we are witnessing something sacred. Some call it fate, some call it destiny. We call it God at work, a divine appointment, ensuring that no hero and no act of faithful service is ever truly forgotten or forsaken. In our everyday lives, we encounter souls carrying invisible wounds, fighting silent battles we cannot see. Look closer, listen deeper, for in the quiet strength of another, in the unwavering loyalty that can span years and bridge any divide, you might just find a reflection of the divine, powerful reminder that we are all connected, watched over, and preserved for a purpose greater than ourselves. Where are you watching this from today? If you believe that true loyalty never dies, and that some reunions are simply meant to be, etched in a plan beyond our understanding, leave a comment below with Amen, and share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that they are not alone and not forgotten. Tap subscribe to Hidden Sparks for more stories that lift the spirit and testify to the enduring power of faith and connection. May God bless you and everyone you love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hidden Sparks for more inspiring content